you born and raised here?
I was raised in Marble County, but I was born in Roanoke, Virginia. We didn't live there long. Um, when my parents married young, they moved around a little bit, and when I think I was 4 or 5, we moved to Marble County, is where I'm raised now. So.
And so, I mean, you went to Coastal Carolina University.
That's correct.
I mean, why did you pick that school? What attracted you to Coastal?
To be honest with you, I knew the program was really good in baseball. I wanted to play baseball in college. I knew it was a party school, but I've always had a knack for keeping my priorities straight, but also I partied a little bit, of course, but I was able to keep my grades up. I went to Coastal a few parties when I was in high school and fell in love with it. In fact, it was the only school I applied to. I knew I wanted to go to Coastal. It's in a great location. I always loved the beach. And yes, I've had great times there. Unfortunately, the situation with my son's kind of tarnished it. I'm interested about baseball. I'm a big fan of the Chanticleers, and it's kind of hard going to the games and knowing that he's right across the street, you know. But my heart is here in Conway, though. It is.
Yeah. And I mean, what did you major in when you were here at Coastal?
I initially started off as a physical education major. During my junior year, which would have been 2008, the housing market crashed. My academic advisor told me that they laid off 350 PE teachers in the state. So at that time, I changed majors. I actually changed to a pre-pharmacy type of degree. I graduated with honors. I went to school for 5 years. I did 2 years for that pharmacy program. I applied to MUSC. I put all my eggs in one basket. I also got put up on the waiting list, and I didn't get in. I was planning on reapplying back in the fall, but I ended up getting a decent job. I worked with some club promotions for fine dining and clubs, and I did that for a little while. And unfortunately, in the science program, after 5 years, you have to renew your credits if you apply to pharmacy school again. But I did. I was going to MUSC to be a pharmacist, though, but life happened. I wouldn't trade anything I've done, do it over again. The way I look at things is everything happens for a reason. Everything that has happened has brought me to this point today, this exact point. I can honestly say that I'm a lot more mature. I've got my priorities straight. I'm working on myself. There was a period in my life right after graduating from college, I didn't want to accept the fact that I was out in the real world, you know. So I kind of numbed myself with partying. And one thing that pushed me to better myself, my father had a heart attack in 2016. He nearly lost his life, and that's when I made a decision to slow down and start growing up. So.
And I mean, what does life look like for you right now?
I will be honest, since 2020, it's been hard. They talk about the stages of grief in psychology. I always picture it as, or imagine it as happening in a certain order. The way I can describe it to you is I have some good days and some bad days. The thing that always is at the back of my mind is if he was alive, he was put out during the coldest part of the year and he froze to death. That is very, very painful to me. It's I just can't imagine what that would be like, freezing to death. I've been working a lot of hours for the past 3 years. I'm a mechanic. I work for a engineering company. I enjoy it. How I have been dealing with the loss of my son is I've compartmentalized it. I know it may not be the best way to deal with it, but it works for me right now. Pretty much out of sight, out of mind, out of sight. Out of sight, out of mind. And I'm the type of person, I guess a lot of males, even females, realize I don't like to really show weakness, so when I talk about it, it invokes a lot of emotions, and I've always been the type to deal with a lot of hurtful things on my own and cry on my own time. So it's been hard, but I will say that in an ironic way, it has humbled me, the situation with Ori. I've overcame some things that I needed to overcome, some things I needed to work on. But most importantly, I value the time that I have with my parents, my grandparents, my nieces, my nephews. I grew up as the oldest of 2 brothers. I actually have another one now. I'm the oldest of 4 brothers. I've got 3 younger. One is my half brother, but of course he's my brother. I've always was a protective type. My parents would tell you that I'm the one that probably loves the deepest. So I do a lot of thinking, a lot of dwelling. A lot of times people they like to say that maybe I'm pessimistic, but the way that I describe myself is I'm a realist. If there's a 98% chance of something happening, I'm going with that. But now I can honestly say that I live more in the moment. I don't really dwell on things as much. Things that in the past would normally provoke me. Maybe someone is cussing me out or something. Now it's almost like I'm numb to a lot of things that have provoked me before. It was such a deep hurt for me. It's almost like it kind of took what I placed significance on before, in terms of what would provoke me, or I felt disrespected or anything like that. It's toned it down where it doesn't really affect me. When you get to a point where you hurt on such a deep level, the other stuff kind of takes a back seat, so to speak. What I can tell you is that I am growing as an individual. I like to live by a motto. I've heard it. I'm not sure who initially said it, but at this point in my life, I'm just trying to be a better man today than I was the previous day. Now with the Ori situation, it's still kind of fresh. It's only been 3 years. That's something that'll never leave me. I don't have any children of my own. He was my only child. He would have been the 4th. He was the firstborn grandchild. I have a lot of thoughts of what could have been. I was an athlete growing up. I loved baseball, football, basketball, soccer. Me and my brothers were really close. We're all 15 months apart. My half brother, he's a lot younger than us. We always had a very, very close bond. They've helped me honestly through this. like I said, me and my brothers, I would honestly say that we have a closer bond than we actually do with our parents. So they've really been there for me. And one thing that I can say that I do appreciate that I didn't have to articulate to them is they're just there for me whenever I need to talk. They just listen. So many times when people go through things, people like to say the phrase, it's gonna be all right, or I understand. I know there's good intentions behind it, but truly it's not something that they understand, I feel like. It feels half-hearted, but my brothers, they know me well. I'll call them and I'll just speak to them, and they're just there to listen. And that's the best thing that you can offer someone in a place of hurt while they're going through hurt. So to wrap it up in terms of how life is now, I'm focused on my career. It keeps me busy. I still have a lot of sorting out of emotions, facing them, because I compartmentalize, like I said. But I do believe in God 100%. I have a strong faith in God. I don't understand fully, but I know one day I will. I really know that this was part of His plan, and I'm going to trust Him. My parents have told me that they've actually seen me grown into more of a man since the situation has unfolded. So I take it as it's not really a curse. I'm taking it as a silver lining of things of what's to come.
Ronald, you're 35 now, right?
35, that's correct.
And I'm taking me back 3 years ago when, you know, the day investigators told you that you were baby boy Roy's father.
I got a knock on my door. It was probably 10 o'clock in the morning. I recently got back from Orlando. I was visiting my mother for a week. When I got back, I think I had the flu or something, and I remember telling the sled agents, they just knocked on the door, and I answered, and I said, "Who is it?" They said, "It's me, boss man," and didn't know what that meant. So I cracked the door, and they told me they were investigators and they wanted to speak to me. Had no idea at that point. I invited them in. I told them I had the flu, to keep their distance, sit on the end of the couch while I sit in the recliner. And they started off with a little bit of small talk, and then it started to get serious. They started questioning me about my girlfriends in college, any girls that I have hooked up with, so to speak, maybe one night stands. They were asking what were the stores they shopped at. They were asking what kind of clothes they wear. And it was at that point I told them, okay, you know, I want to know why you guys are here. And one of the investigators pulled out a manila folder, and there was pictures in it, but he asked me beforehand, you know, did I want to see the actual photo of my son or whatnot. Now, back up right before that, he told me, "Mr. Woodham, somebody in your distant family put in their DNA in Ancestry.com, and it hit back on SLED's database as a 99.9% match to you." At that point, my heart dropped. I got a very heavy feeling. It started in my shoulders, and it was a cold chilled. It went all the way down my body. I said, I know he's mine. They brought out a test swab kit, and the reason why I said I know he's mine, like I said in the past, being a realist, 99.9% match, I know he's mine, you know. And they said, well, he may not be. I said, no, I know he's mine. So then they proceeded to ask me if you could name any of them that you would think that would place your child out in the cold on the coldest part of the year and freeze to death, who would it be? I didn't have a thought then. I had names that I already given them, but I also told them that there was probably more names that I was going to have to think about. Whenever they left, I had a name pop into my head, and the name was Jennifer Rickle. I called the investigator back and told him that Jennifer Rickle was a name, was one that I had relations with too. They went on to Facebook at that time, tried to look for her, and they couldn't find her. I told them, I'm pretty sure she's on my Facebook. I haven't had contact with her since college. So I found her, but her name was Jennifer Sarr. She was married, and she had gotten married. So I told them to look up Jennifer Sarr. And whenever I called them back that time, I said, you know, you asked me a question earlier about if I could choose anybody that would possibly have the capacity to do this, who would it be? And briefly, I thought about the names that I said and could remember, and one thing stuck out to me. There were times when Jennifer was over at my apartment with my roommates. We threw a lot of parties on the weekends. I would get sarcastic with her, playing around, and she would give me this glare. It's like she was looking right through me. It was kind of an uneasy feeling. I've never felt that before. And honestly, that's the only thing I could think about. And I told them that because of that, I feel like it'd be Jennifer. Didn't really think much about it after that. 2 weeks goes by. Of course, I give them more names, a few more names. And they call me back, and they said, Mr. Woodham, we got her. And I said, well, who was it? And they said, it's who you said it was, Jennifer. I said, okay. At that point, I remember thinking back, like, I thought I knew her pretty well. I always thought I was pretty good with my instinct when it came to people. But she was mostly just like everybody else. She was friendly, she laughed, she cut up, she went to class. I knew her never to have any arguments with anyone. But it was just a complete shock. It's somebody that I had an irresponsible night with, and never in a million years would I thought Ori would be mine, but also she would do something like that. It's kind of made me colder in a sense. I have trust issues. I am more skeptical of people when I first meet them. I will say that for about a year after finding out. It was like a blur. There were so many times where I would ask God, why me? There's so many times where I blame myself. I should have been more responsible. I would tell myself I should have used protection. I shouldn't have had a one-night stand. It was all the emotions, but I slept a lot to deal with it. I lost touch with a lot of my close friends. I isolated myself. But I needed that time to myself, I did. And like I said, it may not have been the healthiest way, but it was working for me. And I'm the type of person, of course my parents knew that I was in a hard place. But I never want my parents to worry about me. I don't want to put stress on them. I did talk with my brothers a handful of occasions, not much. But I would say that that first year for sure was the hardest thing I've ever been through. I didn't know where I would end up after so many years. But it's like, I had hope that maybe I would be able to have another child. I was hoping that maybe, you know, the relationship with Raven would work out and be a father to them so that I can experience fatherhood. But at the same time, I had plans. If I had a son, I wanted him to carry on that family name. Of course, that can't happen now. But I do, that year passed, I did see a counselor. That helped immensely. I had better coping strategies. A couple of strategies, one of them was progressive relaxation. Another one was mind distraction. And that helped as a temporary band-aid, so to speak, because the issue was still there. This person that I thought I knew, and this person who I had a one-night stand with, but I also told her too that if something did come of this, where we were in a relationship or if she was pregnant, that I would be with her, that I would try to be there for a child. That was pretty much pillow talk that night, but I meant every word of it. Of course, I knew after her arrest what her side of the story was. To me, it doesn't add up. Mr. Morgan, during the last hearing, was supposed to be your sentencing. He made a comment about how me and her had a non-disclosure agreement. In fact, that morning of the trial, or of the hearing, he called me and he asked my permission if he could speak on the non-disclosure agreement between me and Jennifer. And I was okay with it if he included details of it. he said he was thinking more along the lines of we seem to reach somewhat of understanding. Now, that's not the case. That was never the case. During that NDA, I asked the questions that I needed to. I had to look her in the eyes. Her answers didn't add up. They didn't make sense. I told Mr. Morgan at the time, I don't understand it. I had no further questions. He walked her out. He came back in, and I felt it was very manipulative from the start. Before even talking with her during that NDA, he had a folder of photos. He proceeded to talk about how she was pretty much a role model citizen and mother. He showed me pictures of her children. He showed me pictures of her and her children. That was almost like a slap in the face of me. She's been on house arrest this entire time. She gets to spend holidays, birthdays with her children, while I have to visit mine in the cemetery. When the U.S. Marshals first made contact with her, her first words were, "I was the monster." But she was aware of what she'd done. I understand that she has 2 children. In fact, someone asked me what I think would be the ideal punishment. What I have in mind is actually less than what the prosecutor's pushing for. I am very understanding. But also at the same time, I believe that justice needs to be served, because if not, and it's based on circumstances and existential circumstances, such as her having 2 children after the fact, it almost sends a message of, as long as you can screw up significantly, but as long as you go on with your life and you have children and you're a role model citizen, we're going to have sympathy for you now because you have children. And so the infant that was freezing to death, he's forgot about. Me, my family, there's no justice. It seems like if she basically gets a slap on the wrist. My thinking was that if she was truly sorry, she would have came forward. I believe that she's sorry because she was caught. For every year that she didn't come forward, I feel like a fair punishment would be a year spent in prison, which would be 12 years. Also, I've read numerous stories since then of women abandoning their children. You have a safe haven law, Daniel's law. If they use her 2 children as a factor in the sentencing of it, I don't think it sends the right message. I truly feel that she knew that he was alive, and she knew that what she was doing the entire time. The questions that I asked her, I know I can't get into it, but it did not add up at all. It didn't. The morning of the last hearing, when Mr. Morgan asked permission, and of course I told him that I didn't feel comfortable with it unless he went into details about it, he still proceeded to tell the court that me and her talked. I didn't like that one bit. I truly feel that there were some things missed, and I do know there were some things that were missed with the investigation. I do believe that the investigators did everything they could, but it was pretty apparent in the last hearing that the judge was not really versed with all of the details, and there was one comment that he made that brought me to that conclusion, and it was that I felt like it was a biased opinion on her behalf. He said that, well, common sense would tell people if that baby was alive, whether she be on campus or off campus, wherever she lived, that someone would have hurt him. Now, I'm not sure why he said that. I feel as a judge you should be presented with all the facts, and you should make a judgment based on those facts, not interject opinions, especially opinions that are best left to investigators as well as even maybe a medical expert. What she's saying as far as her having a lot of blood loss, pain, in and out of consciousness, the only thing that's in my head when I hear that is, how is it possible to lose consciousness, not know what you're doing, but yet to concoct a plan at the last minute to hide your newborn and to take him to his place of him passing away? That doesn't add up to me. With the judge saying that whether she be on campus or off campus, that seems to me anyways, that he didn't know where this took place. Obviously she didn't get sentenced last time. He said it was because this was such a unique case. If it was such a unique case, he should have known where she lived. There should have been no doubt or no questioning in terms of whether it was on campus or off campus. And that's a big part of it, because I don't even think the prosecutors or even her attorney knew how well I knew Jennifer, how well I knew the house that she was living in. It was her roommate Jackie. Her parents bought that house. This was my sophomore year. It was a 2-story house with a 2-car garage. Jackie was Robbie's girlfriend. Robbie was my freshman roommate in college. Robbie, Jackie, Jennifer, and another female lived there from 2007 till 2010. I've been over there maybe 6-7 times for parties. Me and Robbie were really close. Jackie, never had issues with her. Alyssa, never had any issues with her. Jennifer, no issues. Now Alyssa, she moved out right after she moved in there. Now this is the same time, around the same time that conception happened, of course. And she moved out because they didn't get along. And when news broke of Jennifer being arrested, Alyssa reached out to me. She told me that Jackie contacted her and told her that Alyssa and Jackie, both of them needed to write character witness statements on behalf of Jennifer, because there's no way in hell they didn't know she wasn't pregnant. Now Alyssa came to me out of confidence and told me that she moves out March, April. Jackie was trying to tell her no, it was much later than that. Alyssa told her that she did not know, obviously. She moved out. Felt like she even started second guessing herself, she said. But she realized, ultimately, she moved out right after that time of conception. Now, fast forward a year, I have the non-disclosure agreement with her set up by Mr. Richardson and Mr. Martin. And at the end of the non-disclosure agreement, Mr. Martin looks at me and he says, if it goes to trial, one of Jennifer's friends will be given a character witness statement. He said, I don't know if you remember, but Jackie would be given one. And I told him, sir, I remember, and I left it at that. To me, with what Alyssa came forward with the previous year, and Mr. Morgan speaking about that, I believe there's a lot of validity in what Alyssa was saying. I presented this to the former victims advocate as well as Mr. Richardson. I'm not sure how far it got in terms of the investigation. But I do feel like there was a lot that they missed. I'm not saying it was intentional by no means, but I don't really believe in coincidences. I don't. That's too much of a coincidence. So that has been eating at me. I never got to experience being in the same room as the mother of my child giving birth. I don't know what it's like. But I can tell you from what many women in my family and close friends have told me, that they just don't see how it was possible for her to not have any recollection, to have so much blood loss, but still have the ability to drive, to drop them off. They all say the same thing, but they say she had to have help. I don't know that. I don't think we'll ever get to that conclusion, honestly. What I want from all of this is basically, if there's women out there that are pregnant and they are unsure what to do, I want them to be aware of the Safe Haven Law, Daniel's Law, but also use me and my family as an example of what kind of impact that a rash decision can have on somebody. I know that Jennifer was young when this happened, but at the same time, she was an adult. She knew right from wrong. As far as her children, I am hurting for them. I can't imagine finding something out about my parents of that nature, that magnitude. I can't imagine moving forward how they viewed her mother. I hurt truly for her husband.
What are your feelings towards Jennifer now?
Now it's resentment, because I truly feel in my gut that she knew what was going on. I don't know if she knew she was pregnant, but I feel like she knew the entire time after the birth what she was doing. With the comment when the U.S. Marshals first made contact with her, yes, I'm the monster. She knew what she done. Honestly, I can't really say what type of person she is today. From what I've heard from Mr. Morgan, from obviously the pictures, she seemed like a great mother, but I don't see how she could even look them in the eye knowing that her firstborn died. If that's the case, he was alive, which I'm fairly certain about because there's some evidence that still hasn't been presented. I don't know when it's going to be presented, but if I need to speak on it another time, I will. But I don't understand how someone can just, she graduated college, got married, just moved on like nothing happened. Her apologies didn't seem sincere. I want the best for her children and family, but also, if you do the crime, you should do the time as well, regardless of what existential circumstances may be. I'm not the one giving her her sentence. I have no influence over that, I feel like. I don't want to sentence her, I don't. But like I said, most importantly, if she gets a slap on the wrist, it sends the wrong message. It does. I just hope and pray that Jennifer will come to terms with what she did, if she hasn't, and take full responsibility at some point. And be a better person, and but I just don't see that happening because I'm going by what I see, what I hear, what I witness, and the questions that I ask in the NDA did not make sense. It made me feel stupid. I told Mr. Martin and Mr. Richardson that I wanted closure if they set up the NDA. In fact, that was their idea. They said that I could ask whatever I want, and I told them what questions I wanted to ask, and she didn't answer them. So really, this whole thing, with all this being said, I don't think she's genuinely sorry for what she did. I don't. Maybe I'm wrong. That's something that I will have to answer for when it's my turn to be judged in the end. But right now, like I said, I don't understand it. She is the reason why I don't have a child right now. He would have been my only child, teenager now. And I will be honest, I don't know if I will ever forgive her for that. I look at that as my future being stolen from me. I do. I know I have a lot of healing to do. I do. But I have a very good support system. I have my family. I have my brothers. I have my nieces and nephews. Like I said earlier, I trust in God. I know that truly everything happens for a reason. No matter how painful something is, there's a lesson to be taught. Mine is to live in the moment and cherish every moment you have with your loved ones and the ones you care about. I was always very independent growing up. I wasn't a mama's boy days where I did my own thing. I wasn't the best at always attending holidays and birthdays, and that's one thing that I now prioritize. It's like my nieces and nephews, like every time I see them, it's painful. And it's painful because I can't help but to think what Oregon would have been like, how close they would have been. But at the same time, you know, I cherish those moments too. But that pain is a sole product of someone choosing not to do what's right. Something I see is so to me evil. I can say that. Knowing that he feels alive. And like I said, with the coroner's findings, everything has been presented. I'm almost certain he was alive, freezing to death. It's tough. It's tough.
Well, do you think, there's any hope for closure?
Early on, when news broke of this, my grandfather on my mother's side told me, don't be surprised if she just gets a slap on the wrist. He was the chief of police in Chicago for many years for one of the precincts. Also, he has a lot of street smarts. He's been around these type of things. I didn't want to hear it, didn't want to believe it. I was like, there's no way. But as this is playing out with the hearings and everything, it's starting to look more like that, and I've been preparing myself for it. Now, in terms of closure, I won't have any closure. This questions that I have unanswered. I will say this. I was headstone. It doesn't tell his exact day of birth. I come down, of course, for his birthday. A lot of times, in the past couple of years, I come down for the weekend, but I feel guilty because I don't even know if I'm there on the right day. It's a estimation of between November 30th to December 4th. So if I'm there December 3rd and 4th, I feel guilty. I can't take off from work whenever, you know. In terms of that, that's what's going to bother me quite a bit. Now, I will say this whole court process, the hearings, the sentencing, last time was supposed to be the sentencing. I know that once the sentencing's over, I won't feel on edge like I'm waiting, anticipating for that. I look at that as a chapter being closed. That's something I can't control. That's not something I'm going to be angry over the sentencing or not angry over, happy with. Like I said, it's not my place to sentence her. But when she's sentenced, it will close that chapter and I can start to move forward and heal more, if that makes sense.
Yeah. After today, you are going to be able to hopefully close that chapter.
Yes, sir.
What do you want people to remember about your son?
He was innocent newborn that had his whole life ahead of him. And unfortunately, sometimes bad things happen, and I remember talking briefly with a supervisor of mine about it, and he told me to not let that define who I am. What I want people to know about my son is that God did give him life, even though it's been a nightmare. It has helped me grow as an individual, but also I want people, when I think about baby boy Ori, especially mothers who are confused, to know that there is help out there, to know that you can drop your child off at a fire department, at a police station, at the hospital, no questions asked. Somebody would love to have that child. I look at every
after this case today, this hearing, the chapter's going to be closed.
Yes, sir.
What do you want people to remember about your son?
I want them to remember that even though what happened to him, there was a purpose. I may not understand it, but I can tell you that in an ironic way, it has made me grow as an individual. It has made me prioritize things that should have been prioritized in my life. The one thing I can say, this a silver lining, is that I never got to form memories with him. Of course, I wish I would have, but it does soften the blow somewhat. Ori, like I said, I want him to be a reminder to women who are confused, young women who are confused. There's help out there. That should never be an option, ever. What happened with him.
And Ronald, baby boy Ori You never had a name.
Mm,
Have you ever thought about what you would name your son?
absolutely. He will be Ronald Woodham IV. He will be. I will also continue to honor his name, Baby Boy. That will be on his headstone. But yes, he will be the fourth.
Ronald, thank you again so much for talking to us today. Is there anything that I did not ask you that you think is important for us to include?
Yes, I want her family to know that I don't hate Jennifer. I don't understand her. And at the same time, I want them to know that I know they're hurting too. And it's hard for all of us. So I do hope they can make it through okay as well. Absolutely.
And Joel, you have your family, like you mentioned.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.